The most dangerous thing you do every day isn't smoking, overeating, or doom scrolling. It's allowing low-quality people unlimited access to your time, your energy, and your mind. You were taught that isolation is the problem. Nobody told you that people are. Let me be blunt with you about something society has been lying to your face about your entire life. You were told that isolation is a symptom, a warning sign, the thing that happens to people who failed at being human, the awkward ones, the broken ones, the ones who couldn't figure out how to connect. That narrative is not an accident. It was engineered by a system that requires your social dependence to function. Networking culture, FOMO, the obsession with followers and approvals. These aren't features of modern life. They're control mechanisms, and they work perfectly on people who haven't been taught to see them. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most clear-eyed thinkers in the history of Western philosophy, didn't just disagree with this narrative, he obliterated it. His framework reframes isolation not as failure, but as the single most lethal competitive advantage a person can build. What I'm about to show you is called the Schopenhauer Method. And after this, you will never apologize for being alone again. Schopenhauer's most famous thought experiment goes like this. Imagine a group of porcupines on a cold winter night. They press together for warmth and immediately wound each other. They pull apart to escape the pain and immediately freeze. So they spend the whole night drifting, close enough to survive, far enough not to bleed. He wasn't writing a nature documentary, he was writing about you. The instinct to seek human warmth is real, it's ancient. But here's what the self-help industry will never tell you. The need for that warmth is exactly what makes you vulnerable. Every manipulator, every emotional parasite, every person who has ever systematically dismantled your confidence found their entry point through your need to be close, to be liked, to be chosen. The method doesn't ask you to become cold. It asks you to become calibrated, to develop what Schopenhauer called the optimal distance. Far enough that no one's quills reach you, close enough that you still feel alive. That distance, it is not loneliness, it is geometry. Think about the people who have hurt you most, not strangers. The ones who were close, the ones who knew your routines, your insecurities, your soft spots. Distance didn't fail you with those people. Closeness did. You handed them the blueprint and called it trust. The Schopenhauer Method doesn't tell you to never trust again. It tells you to make trust expensive, to treat your proximity like a resource. Finite, non-renewable, and worth protecting. Now, let's talk about the specific kind of person this method was built to neutralize. Psychologists identify what's sometimes called the dark triad, a cluster of personality traits that includes narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. People with elevated traits in this cluster share one fundamental dependency. They need your reaction, your fear, your confusion, your desperate attempts to win back their approval. That need for your emotional response is not incidental to how they operate. It is how they operate. Every gaslighting tactic, every hot and cold cycle, every subtle humiliation delivered in public, these are not random cruelties. They are feeding strategies. And here is the cold, mechanical truth. You cannot out-argue a parasite. You cannot outlove them. You cannot explain yourself into safety. You can only cut the supply. The Schopenhauer Method calls this the mental quarantine. Not a dramatic scene, not a confrontation, just a quiet, absolute withdrawal of the one resource they cannot function without, your attention. When you remove physical access, reduce visual cues, and go emotionally flat, the strategy collapses. There is nothing left to manipulate. You have become, as far as they are concerned, inert. Here is where most people stop, because what comes next is the part nobody warns you about. When you remove the noise, the plans, the group chats, the social obligations that fill every crack in your calendar, what's left is silence. And in that silence, everything you've been avoiding finally surfaces. The half-finished thoughts, the real ambitions you buried under busyness, the version of yourself you shelved because it felt too strange, too ambitious, too different from what was expected. Schopenhauer wrote that the more a person had in themselves, the less they required from the outside world. That was not arrogance, that was a diagnosis of what deep solitude reveals when you stop running from it. The person who cannot sit alone in a quiet room for 4 hours without reaching for their phone is not free. They are managed by noise, by approval, by the invisible leash of other people's opinions. But when you sit in that silence long enough, something shifts. The discomfort passes, the mind settles, and in that stillness, the kind of hyper-focus that most people only dream about becomes ordinary. Not because you became smarter, but because you finally removed every competitor for your own attention. Your empire, whatever that means for you, does not get built in group chats. It gets built in the void. Here's what nobody wants to admit. Most people are busy specifically to avoid themselves. The calendar packed wall to wall, the background noise always running, the phone checked before the eyes are even fully open. This isn't productivity, it's avoidance with a good PR strategy. The moment you sit in real silence, you discover whether there's actually something there. And if there isn't, that information is priceless because now you know exactly what needs to be built. There is a specific social behavior that the Schopenhauer Method transforms into a superpower. And most people are conditioned to do the exact opposite. When tension enters a room, most people rush to fill it. They over-explain, they apologize preemptively, they perform warmth to neutralize threat. It's reflexive. And it signals immediately who holds the anxiety in the interaction. The method teaches stillness as signal. When you respond slowly, when you let silence sit between you and another person without flinching, when you do not scramble to make them comfortable, you are not being rude, you are being illegible. And illegibility in a world of transparent, reactive people reads as power. The brain is not wired to relax in the presence of an unknown variable. It cannot look away, it compulsively analyzes. And while they're busy trying to read you, you are completely, effortlessly in control. Schopenhauer understood this intuitively. He spent decades being misunderstood, dismissed, ignored by his academic peers. And he did not chase their approval. He waited decades, and the world eventually came to him. The pause is not weakness, the pause is patience with teeth. So let's name what this actually builds. Not a cold person, not a recluse, not someone who has simply given up on human connection. What the Schopenhauer Method builds is selectivity at scale. A person who has chosen their inner circle with the precision of a surgeon rather than the desperation of someone afraid to be alone. A person whose presence carries weight specifically because it is rare. A person who cannot be gaslit because they have no emotional debt to repay. Who cannot be manipulated because they have no approval to withhold. The Stoics, Seneca in particular, wrote about something adjacent to this when he argued that a person should withdraw into themselves as much as possible and only associate with those who are likely to improve them. The key word is improve, not comfort, not entertain, improve. That is the standard. The Schopenhauer Method applies to every relationship. And when you apply that standard honestly, without guilt, without social obligation, without the fear of being seen as difficult, the math becomes brutal and clarifying. Most of the noise in your life is not people, it's static. And static doesn't deserve a seat at the table of your attention. Not, do I enjoy this person? But, does this person make me sharper, more honest, more capable? If the answer is no, the distance is not cruelty, it is curation. One final thing, and this matters. This method is a defensive architecture. It is not a license to become the thing you're protecting yourself from. There is a clear and important distinction between the person who isolates strategically, to build, to heal, to think, and the person who isolates to dominate and control others. The Schopenhauer Method is not about making other people feel small. It is about making yourself large enough that their smallness can no longer reach you. Schopenhauer himself lived this in full. Dismissed for decades, written off as a pessimist, died in 1860, alone, eating breakfast at a Frankfurt inn, and within a generation, his ideas had shaped Nietzsche, Freud, Einstein, and half of modern psychology. He did not die bitter. He died complete. Because he had spent his entire life refusing to need anything from a world that wasn't ready for him. That is the quiet power at the heart of this method. Not the loudest person in the room, not the most connected, not the most liked, the one who needed nothing.